In studying any card, one ought not to neglect any of the attributions, because each class of attribution does modify the form and color of the card and its use. So that's the first caveat. So he's essentially also saying that it doesn't match the tables. Okay, why it doesn't match, that's another sort of question. So, you know, with color, usually you're talking, you know, they have the 4 levels, and the idea is that the king and or the knight or the queen scales is male and female, and they produce the prince scale, so that the colors of the prince scale are a combination of those 2 colors. And then you have the princess, which gets in really wild and wacky, and you can have speckles and lines and all kind of things as well too. It's the Golden Dawn system of the Hodus Chameleonis is tough.
Okay.
The reason why color scales and color theory is in the second order, inner order, is because it's all to do with magic and nothing to do with making your tarot cards pretty. Okay, so he's talking about Atu, and then he says the Atu of Tahuti, who is the Lord of Wisdom, are also called keys. They are the guides to conduct. They give you the map of the kingdom of heaven, and also the best way to take it by force. So the purpose of color, as we're going to see, is to achieve the kingdom of heaven. The kings of the kingdom of heaven, I guess you can say as well. And it says, a complete understanding of any magical problem is necessary before it can be solved. Study from outside and action from outside are always abortive. So he's saying that this has got to be an inner force that's going on here. And it's using color to solve problems and gain insights and ascend to wherever you want to go to in your magical journey. So then he says, it is of the utmost importance to understand this extremely specialized character of the trumps. So again, so this is the point, the trumps are there to facilitate magical development in various forms. We don't kind of need to sort of figure those things out at the moment because it applies to any of the cards. And then he talks about the Empress. So, you know, I said, the colors are to do with astrology, basically, the planets and the signs of the zodiac. He says, to say that the trump number 3, called the Empress, represents Venus, means something much less, and also much more than appears, if Venus be studied from a strictly astrological standpoint. And as we know, the Empress connects up with all of the 10 Sephiroth, doesn't it? And so it encompasses the whole sort of thing. One abandons the contemplation of the whole in order to take practical advantage of a part. Just so tactics differs from a strategy. A great general does not think of war in the abstract, but confines his attention to a minute part of perhaps his vast knowledge of the subject by considering the disposition of his forces at a given place and time and how best to employ them against his adversary. We can ask the Ukrainians about this one, can't we? They know all about this stuff. So he's saying also that basically, you know, when you're using colour, it's for a specific purpose and not just for general and the whole sort of thing that's going on. So he says the student of the tarot must not therefore expect to find anything beyond a careful selection of the facts about any given card. Selection made for quite definite magical purpose. Nothing about divination here. Nothing about fortune telling. This is about the magical use of colour, which is why it's to do with the second order and not for fortune telling and everything else. And then he says, however, the tarot does try to resume in a single pictorial symbol as many as possible of the useful aspects of the idea, which is kind of what happens. In studying any card, one ought not to neglect any of the attributions, because each class of attribution does modify the form and color of the card and its use. So technically we could take one of these major cards, see how much it diverges from the list of the 4 levels of color, and determine what Crowley intended that card to be used magically. There's a challenge.